What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review. I know, right? Almost as though we like reviewing albums or something.
Almost as though we do this all the time.
I think there's a bit of a tagline there. I don't know. So today, we are going to go over the latest album from Cloud Rat, Threshold. This comes out again on the 7th of October on Artifact Records. This band formed in 2009 in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, so they're kind of like neighbors to the north here. This is their fourth full-length overall. They have a shit ton of splits. I think they have like 11 of them. I think a handful of EPs. And this is some really fucking awesome grindcore. And I honestly only got into them on their last album, Pollinator, which I did a review forever ago on that I don't think many people watched. But I really dug that album, and I definitely wanted to go over this one because this band has something kind of different to bring to grindcore overall.
One, we're really sorry we missed you at MDF.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. But this being grindcore, this is so much more than grindcore. In a very good way. In a very nice, pleasant, violent, angry, fucking destructive way.
A Mount Pleasant way.
Yep. Oh.
I'll fire myself, don't worry.
You're fired.
Now make no mistake, this is some flat out vicious grind, but there are a lot of different influences, at play here. Like, of course, you have, like the classic stuff in terms of like Napalm Death and Terrorizer, but at the same time, like, the dynamic shifts on these songs. For being very short, they have a lot of interesting movements and they pull from a lot of different camps. Stylistically, I think this is very akin to bands like Pig Destroyer and Wormrot, just in terms of just how chaotic, but in terms of like forming songs and the chaos, they do a really good job. But it's post-hardcore elements on here and like metalcore and stuff like that that kind of bring it out. Like, there's a lot of stuff on here that is very similar to Quicksand, Helmet, but at the same time also similar to like Integrity and Converge in terms of like this flat out hardcore vibe. Lots of D beats, lots of blast beats, but I don't know, there's an interesting sense of melody and atmosphere on here.
Yep. Something I wasn't expecting, dissonant atmosphere and doom in parts, like the song 12/22/09.
I don't know what happened that day.
3 days before Christmas, 4 days after Nick's birthday in 2009 when we were all younger. Yeah, I don't know what happened on that day, but doomy things, apparently. Doomy, dark, dissonant riffs.
Could have been the day the band formed, I don't know.
Maybe it was the day the band formed. Please let us know.
But yeah, the atmosphere on here is just, I don't know, like, it's not feel good, it's not feel bad, but you definitely feel something. The lyrical themes on here, I believe, are a little bit more like personal in terms of like just like internal struggles, dealing with, whatever horrible issues going on.
Dealing with living in Michigan.
Yeah, it's similar to living in Ohio. We just got different Rust Belt towns.
Your roads are worse than ours.
Yeah, your roads are worse.
Sorry. But you guys have legalized marijuana, and that's great.
And a lot of that emotion is conveyed in Madison Marshall's vocals. Holy shit, this is just a visceral performance. She is pretty much screaming until her lungs fucking give out, but at the same time, pivoting to harsh lower growls. There's whispers. It's very just distraught and just, I don't know, so emotionally just negative. Like, there's so much writhing fucking hate in her delivery, but at the same time, when you isolate it in those more distant moments, it sounds desperate and just, I don't know, like, there's so much conveyed in the vocals, and that is definitely matched by the music on here.
Well, the vocals overall, too, seem to be isolated themselves. Like, did you guys just put her in a shack and tell her to scream? Are you okay? They're isolated to a point where they really stand out. Like, you can tell, like, they're their own separate entity to add an additional, almost instrument to the songs.
And it doesn't sound like there's a lot of effects on them, which I think is really cool. In fact, like, the whole production of this sounds like live. Like, it sounds like a jammed in studio, and it's raw, but it's raw in a really good way. Like, I think the levels are really solid in here. The drums are surprisingly a little bit more out front.
And holy shit, man, you're tired, aren't you? Like the end of the song, Ribbon Boat. That whole song, and I guess I shouldn't say the end of the song. Most of the songs are like a minute and a half. The song Ribbon Boat. you're tired. Frantic fucking drums, everything's accented, there's constant turnovers, there's constant double kick, there's constant blast beats, and just groove all over the place.
Hardcore groove. There are moments on here where it hits like sort of like classic, like early 2000s, late 90s metalcore, like Earth Crisis. It just comes in and swings for your face because you're not wearing X's on your hands and you had a hamburger that day, and that pisses off Earth Crisis. There are a ton of Bruiser tracks on here. The song Shepherd, The Color of a Dog, it's probably brown.
Could be black.
Could be black. Persicum and Inner Controller, Lucid Running Home, that's in parentheses. These songs are vicious, and that is one side of the band that, you know, I think they do particularly well. I think they do it all pretty well here. But man, when they get heavy, like, it is just like flesh-ripping heavy. The riffs will change around from like hardcore, like down picking to like really cool tremolos to atmospheric, you know, tremolos to kind of atmosphere it up a little bit, like kind of blackened. But man, the D beats and just the overall drum work in here, man, these songs just get propelled in your face like bat swings.
But really quickly.
Really quick bat swings. Either way, you're fucking dead.
And then they break it up a little bit again with Doom. Yeah, Listening Ear, back to Ribbon Boot, even Porcelain Boat again. Again, those songs all have a really kind of dissonant melodic atmosphere. There's so much melody on this record amongst the flurries of riffs and blast beats and brutal assaults. A lot of melody carries this record.
Grindcore shit fits.
Yes.
And then it pivots to, well, what are, you know, like pleasant melodies to people that like, you know, really insane music. Like, you know, again, like this is grindcore melodies, like, you know, no one's like, oh my god, that's really fucking pretty. I'm gonna go back to listening to Muse. It's not that.
No.
But the melodic atmosphere on here, I don't know, it just adds a lot. And like the opening to Ribbon Boot, like it's a stoner metal riff. Like it sounds like High on Fire for a second before going into, again, the D beats and just all the visceral fucking, just gnarly fucking riffs. But there were some interesting surprises on here, namely Corset. Corset kind of reminded me of Dillinger Escape Plan. It has those weird skittering, like kind of squawky riffs and interesting little transitions. It's not as like weird and jazzy as Dillinger gets, but it kind of has that vibe. Or, you know, a band like Glassjaw. It just kind of has that, you know, kind of really dissonant, emotive, hardcore sort of feel to it. And I thought that was really interesting, again, with these hardcore, post-hardcore, and even mathcore influences kind of being thrown in grind. Like, because at the core of this album, it is fiercely grindcore. But these other elements being kind of woven in there, along with some really interesting transitional atmosphere in here, it really makes this sort of like an adventure of a listen. Like, it's a real fucking journey. This isn't just one track after the other. Like, okay, this, you know, it flows well. Like, I feel like there's, you know, a start and an end, like a whole destination, and I don't know where we went. I mean, it sounds like the musical equivalent of Downtown Detroit. But, like, it's a vicious, emotional fucking listen from start to finish, and very engaging.
I guess I should say that reviewing a grindcore album is incredibly tough. You have so little time to catch all this. You know, we had to push stop on the phone every, like, 2 songs to catch up.
All right, what did you hear? I heard this. Okay, I heard that too. That happened? What?
Right. But that's also the really cool part of reviewing grindcore is there's so much to catch so quickly, and some grindcore bands I don't think are this adventurous.
No.
Which made this such an engaging listen.
Like, this is very comparable to Wormrot's Hiss, honestly, just in terms of, like, incorporating a lot of different elements and dynamics within songs, because these songs can switch gears on you super quickly, but it's generally all for, like, the best, like, in terms of making the song, like, bigger, a little bit more grand, because you have, a minute and a half to condense all this rage, but also make it very musical, because there's tons of grindcore bands out there that just, like, fucking beat the shit out of you and then leave after a minute. And I love those bands. There are a lot of them in my record collection.
Looking at you, Birdflesh.
Yeah. Or Rotten Sound or, any of that shit. I don't rock a fucking Nossum hoodie for a fashion statement. I fucking love what they do. But I just think there's more going on with this band in terms of like being maybe a little bit more musically fearless in the sense that, we're going to include a lot of different elements here. And it'll be tricky to sort of weave them in these songs, but man, they fucking did it. Mm-hmm. As far as any, negatives on this, I'm kind of hard pressed to find anything. I really enjoyed this listen. I really enjoyed Pollinator. And this is kind of similar to it, just in terms of just the songwriting, the atmosphere. But I think this one, I don't know, it might be even more refined and at the same time more raw. So I don't know, it's kind of confusing. But I mean, I can see where some of the transitions might be a little bit jarring and the sort of manic fits of switching moods within these short condensed songs can be hard to absorb, but honestly, I think it made it a really awesome listen.
Yeah.
So overall, I am going to give this 4 stars. This is fucking awesome. Bordering on a 4.5. And dude, way to go grindcore this year in general.
Yeah, no shit.
There's been some fucking kick-ass grindcore albums that have come out this year, and we can just throw this one on the list. I like how moody and evocative and how this just draws you in. But at the same time, it's still doing what I need grindcore to do. Beat the living shit out of my eardrums. It does that. It has all of that condensed rage and violence, but again, atmosphere, melody, post-hardcore elements coming in and used very effectively. Like, this is almost like the grindcore equivalent of, Converge and Cave In doing a fucking album together, which technically they kind of did earlier this year. If you are a grindcore nut, I strongly recommend this. If you're a post-hardcore or a metalcore fan, like if you're a big, again, Converge fan or Integrity, shit like that, the raw, fucking nasty hardcore metalcore, definitely check this out. This is a fucking nasty listen, and I'm gonna order it right after we're done here.
I don't do this often, but it's a 4.5 for me. This record was fucking killer. I think it hit more so when we went through and listened to it as a whole, instead of stopping in between tracks. The record flows incredibly smooth for being what it is. For me, at least, it's that constant melodic atmosphere that's behind it all that really kind of ties it together. It makes it like a fully cohesive element. The music, like Nick said, is just non-stop pummeling, assault your eardrums, and that's what I love about grind. But there is so much more incorporated in here, so many elements I really wasn't expecting. Yeah, I won't spend forever gushing about it. I'm just gonna tell you to go out and fucking listen to it. It's a trip, and it's a good trip, and I had a lot of fun, and I'm quite certain I will be listening to this more in the future, and I'm quite certain I'm probably gonna visit the band's Bandcamp or whatever the hell they have and pick this up as well, as should you. 100%.
I'll be there in a minute.
Yep, yeah, right. Just, as soon as we turn this camera off, we'll be there. So, yeah, fucking killer.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. There's a link to our Patreon there, and we also have stuff in there like shirts. We will have other stuff, available eventually. We're still kind of in the testing phase. Like, does that look cool? Does that make us look like a fucking doofus? A lot of things make us look like a doofus.
We look like losers in this.
Mostly it's our faces that make us look like losers.
Yep.
And everything else.
And then last but not least, here we go in the Thank Hub. Thank Hub. Thank you.
Put that in the thank bank. Yeah.
Oh, man. But seriously, no, thank you for continuing to tune in spite of our obvious stupidity.
Shortcomings.
Yep, shortcomings. We'll call them shortcomings, yeah.
Because it's Thank Hub, and you gotta throw in Cummings.
You see? And you're still here. Surprisingly, for all of you that are still here, thank you very much for continuing to tune in, for your likes and comments, and for, engaging us in conversation and all the wonderful things that you guys do. Thank you from the bottom of our blackened little hearts. They match our lungs. So thank you. And you. And you. Thank you so much.
It's very pointy at the end of these videos here lately.
It's a POV.
Yeah, it's kind of rude. It's rude.
It's not.
Rude.
It's some people like
rude.
that.
Anyway, I'm going to thank you one more time because that's what I do. And we will catch you later.